Relationship between Red Bull's two F1 teams is coming under increasing scrutiny after AlphaTauri allegedly produced what one rival team called the best car in low-speed corners during 2023. While Red Bull dominated both championships, sister team AlphaTauri spent most of the season in last before a surge of 4 points finishes at 5 Grand Prix jumped ahead of Haas and Sauber and almost Williams too. The AT04 was heavily upgraded through the season with close attention paid by rivals, so a sequence of floor updates from the Singapore Grand Prix onwards as variants appeared in Austin as well as the season finale in Abu Dhabi. AlphaTauri's Singapore package was a significant overhaul which included a switch to parts of the RB19's rear suspension. It started the season using the RB18's rear end as using older Red Bull parts that have been the team's preference for several years. Even though it's a mid-season switch, it's unorthodox. This is allowed by F1's regs governing parts which the team may purchase from another, and it's not really any different to how any other team do their own suspension upgrade. And Red Bull made it clear it wanted AlphaTauri to better maximise the share part rule, given the vastly superior performance gap. AlphaTauri, though, has continued to assert that its own aerodynamic development has been the primary developer of its improved form. At the season finale in Abu Dhabi, where Yuki Tsunoda qualified 6th, McLaren team principal Angelo Stella made a point of mentioning AlphaTauri's progress while explaining how McLaren's long-standing weakness in slow corners had impacted its own performance in qualifying there. I think it's nowadays the car at low speed, said Stella, so I would like to say very well done to AlphaTauri engineers for making the best car in low speed. It's quite impressive. AlphaTauri counters both by pointing out its car is also slow on the straight, so it focused a lot on adding downforce without being able to refine aerodynamic efficiency. But that is more than a standard gripe about a back marketing starting to interfere with the usual point scorers again. Innocuous as Stella's comments might seem, they reflect the fact the rate and quality of AlphaTauri's 2023 upgrades have caught the attention of teams that for now are still more competitive. While the second Red Bull team performs well, it immediately raises concerns about how that has been achieved, and if even it's a more extreme example of the paranoia that has existed when Ferrari's customer team Haas was at its more competitive points. It's only going to increase as Red Bull moves part of its second team closer to the whole quarters too. The situation is beginning to escalate behind the scenes. Some teams want collaboration to be clamped down more ahead of 2026 and have that augmented by the Concord Agreement as well to put more emphasis on independent F1 governance, not just its regs. The reason for the concern is simple. Theoretically, it'd be a big advantage if two teams were to split the research and development of certain teams between them, just not sharing any aerodynamic secrets. But beyond the list of what parts teams can and cannot buy from one another, the regulations do outline strict requirements for prevention of the transfer of data, designs, drawing, or any other IP, receipt of information, consultancy, or any kind of services that any competitor or the sharing of any methodologies. While there's been no specific accusations of wrongdoing by the two Red Bull teams, the implication is that some other teams still feel like the rules need to be tighter to reduce the risk. Although the FIA doesn't want to get involved with monitoring personnel's day-to-day movements, to police any potential exchanges across teams. One example of varieties that have been discussed is for the FIA to be able to conduct spot checks at team facilities with almost no notice. There's also set to be further guidance issued to teams about what can be done to convince the FIA that nothing untoward is happening behind the scenes. As far as the FIA is concerned, nothing about AlphaTauri's progress in 2023 has set any alarm bells. Teams decide how to spend their money in different ways. Nicholas Tombassis, the FIA's director for F1, said, sometimes teams carry out modifications to floor which are more local and therefore don't involve throwing everything away. We haven't seen anything with AlphaTauri it's concerning us, but did admit it's a live concern to make sure teams collaborate in ways that are well segregated. However, he stressed that's not only between the two teams at Red Bull. We believe that AlphaTauri specifically does have quite aerodynamic solutions to the other company, and we don't think there's any clear sign of direct collaboration. Clearly they are working hard and have made a step forward. I don't think it can be said it's due to the collaboration. That said, collaboration or making sure that no such thing happens is one of the tricky parts of our policing team. We're not underestimating the challenge it is to have one of the difficulties we have. Tombassis said that actively splitting design work to evaluate which ideas are the best would be illegal, although it's not suspected between the two teams. He suggested that the FIA's check would root out any illicit tactics because when teams have run similar aerodynamic components in the past, they've been challenged to prove their development process was organic. I don't think that's something that is happening at the moment. He said, we have checked and we have the process to check. Is it easy? No, I'm not saying it's easy. It's always a challenge. While there's no doubt AlphaTauri has been busy with its upgrades this season, there are more selfish reasons than any hypothetical benefit for Red Bull's main team. For starters, the parent company has made it clear that there needs to be urgent for improvement from the second team. It has long felt in the wake of Mateschitz passing, Red Bull will not be able to hesitate to sell AlphaTauri unless it became more efficient and and successful. That's driven greater collaboration between the two teams. It also played part in a technical reshuffle with head of aero Dickon Balmouth ousted an ex-Red Bull and Aston Martin senior engineer Guru Hole among those to join. Improved aerodynamics and bits of the RB19's rear end helped transform the performance, but there was no single magic switch. AlphaTauri actually improved gradually, and a late season burst of points finishes was about finally converting its potential rather than making future gains. We're starting the season a long way off the back foot, said chief engineer Jonathan Eddles. So there was plenty of time to find, but I think it's fair to say that the factory, Bicester and Faenza have done a really good job at identifying those weaknesses and then working to address those. But it just takes so long. Firstly, you change the targets and you have to develop around those targets. Then you find you've got to make the parts. Then you bring them to the track. It's only Singapore since the second part of the season where we've really been seeing the fruits of that. We've been updating the car all year, so to get points in that many circuits, it's taken quite a while to get to the stage where we can hopefully consistently score points. As for the rate of the upgrades, the lack of spares in Abu Dhabi showed not just how desperate AlphaTauri was to add performance to its car, but also how potentially cutting corners to expedite production and reduce costs. That's how the wind tunnel works. It's constantly developing every day. You've got new parts, different packages, said Eddles. If they find something interesting like the direction of fall, they'll put a bit more focus into trying to maximise it. That came in late in the season, but if we were aggressive enough, there was enough time to get to the last race. That supported AlphaTauri's failed but valiant attempt to overhaul Williams for 7th in the championship at the final round, although it gained around 20 million in prize money by jumping up to 8th anyway, and that can definitely help with their 2024 design too. As far as Red Bull concerned, the link between the two teams is no different to any other supplier-customer relationship in F1. Horner said that AlphaTauri would attempt its own success by using the tools and parts in the best way they can. Horner said it's an awfully long way from a pink Mercedes situation, with the Racing Point copying the 2020 Mercedes, and obviously that's a successful car. When you look at the car, there's quite fundamental differences between that car and Red Bull's car. Horner, and arguably there's other cars on the grid that are far closer in concept than an AlphaTauri is to Red Bull. You've only got to look at an Aston Martin or even a McLaren to look around the rear suspension to see it's very close to ours. It is permissible to be influenced by the design and concepts of a rival, but just reverse engineering ideas from photos or scans is not permitted, even if a similar design has to be developed by legitimate independent work. Even though there's been some discussion about the prospect of next year's AlphaTauri looking like an RB19, that isn't necessarily on the card, and based on what's emerged at the end of 2023, it's not what Red Bull's rivals are most concerned about anyway. There's likely to be a bigger topic. There'll be no stopping a closer working relationship between these two, and that's been set in motion for some time. The expected rebrand is going to make the team more of a Red Bull 2 and sharing a campus, even if the second team are not fully based there, adds a link geographically too. This makes a unique situation, an added challenge to regulate, an obvious source of ongoing paranoia for the other teams on the grid. So anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share and subscribe. Follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily F1 news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.